Do you find yourself looking at dashboards that tell you data that don't have any impact on your team's outcomes? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can start building dashboards that cut through the noise and get right to the heart of the metrics you need to make your team more effective. Hi, my name's Zach Parsons, and I have over 10 years of experience helping teams like yours reduce time waste and uncertainty. So when talking about dashboards, it's really hard to get anywhere without talking about indicators. And I think lots of people understand indicators in different ways. So it's worth, I think, me saying what I think an indicator is so that we're on the same page for the rest of this conversation. So for me, an indicator is a measure of the state or level of something. But critically, this is where, and critically for when we're talking about dashboards, it's where the change in the state or level will influence action taking. That's what I mean by indicators for the purposes of this video. So if we accept that a dashboard is essentially just a collection of indicators, when we're selecting the collection of indicators, we're essentially a curator of indicators. We should only be choosing those which, if they change in a certain way, will influence to take action, will change our behavior based on what those indicators are doing. So I'm going to take what I hope is a relatively easy example for everyone, which is the car dashboard. So if the revs per minute are too high, we're going to change gears. And I apologize for American listeners. This may be completely lost on you because you have automatics. But if you're in a manual car and your RPMs are too high, then you will change your gear. So for clarity on that example, the indicator there is the revs per minute and the behavior is the changing of gears. Now, sometimes the level at which a behavior is triggered is based on targets or restraints. So as an example, let's assume that everyone watching this is a law-abiding citizen, but also that everyone watching this wants to get to their destination in as minimum time as possible. Now, in the UK, and I'm pretty sure in every country, pretty much every country, there are speed limits. Now, let's assume that the speed limit is 50 on the road that we are traveling on, and we're going 50 miles per hour. Now, in that scenario, there'll be no change in behavior because we're not breaking the law and we don't need to speed up to minimize our journey time. Now, if, however, we're still going 50, but the speed limit is 30, which is a different target, then we would have to change our behavior. We would have to reduce our speed in order to become a law-abiding citizen. And the same is true the other way around. If the speed limit is 50 and we're going 30, we'd have to speed up to then minimize our journey time. Now, that's an example where we're reacting to an indicator getting out of a desirable range at the time that it's getting out of that desirable range. However, sometimes we want to have an early indication of something bad happening. So, for example, it is pretty useless if our fuel light was to come on when we're completely out of fuel. We need an indicator that our behavior needs to change in advance of something really shitty happening. So, for example, in that example, the behavior is to refuel. We need to know way in advance that we need to refuel. Now, interestingly, or I find it interesting, you may not, early indicators need to strike a balance. So they need to give enough time to avert the bad scenario. So in this case, running out of fuel in the middle of nowhere, but not so much time that the indicator isn't taken on seriously enough and it just becomes ignored. So if your fuel light came on when you still had 100 miles in the tank, you probably wouldn't pay that much attention to it. And because you're paying that, you're never going to pay any attention to it. It's never going to trigger you to change your behavior. All right, so before we wrap, I want to do two more indicators. Well, one is an indicator and another is talking about how multiple indicators work together. So the indicator I want to talk about is a reassurance indicator. Now, these are less common on dashboards, but I think they're still worth mentioning. So an example of this would be your turning indicator. So as a driver, if you move the indicator stalk, which I only have just found out by Googling to find out what on earth I call it in this video, it's called an indicator stalk. If you knew that before me, then well done. You know what car bits are more better than I do. Anyway, when you turn your indicator stick, you want to be reassured that your car has understood the instruction to turn your indicators on. So the light on the dashboard is just a little light. Oh, okay, the car knows that I want it to turn the indicator lights on. So you may think, oh, but that doesn't actually influence behavior in any way. But it does in a sense that if it's not on when you expect it to be, then you'll troubleshoot and fix the issue. So for example, you put the stalk up, the light doesn't come on your indicator, you like flick it down again, put it back up, flick it down again, put it back up. And if it doesn't come on, then you'll probably pull to the side of the road when it's safe to do so and try and figure out what's going on, maybe take it to a garage, that sort of thing. So it does actually influence behavior in that way. Now, sometimes a single indicator isn't enough to give you accurate information on what action to take. And this is where complementary indicators will come into the mix to help you diagnose what action you need to take. So for example, if we're going over the speed limit and have a high rev per minute, that means that we're accelerating. So one indicator is telling us that there's an issue. That's the speed gauge. And then the other indicator is telling us the source of the issue, which is the revs per minute that we're accelerating. Now, I do want to say that sometimes what you do is you will build a dashboard with indicators that are high level overviews. In fact, I would recommend that you do build a dashboard with high level indicators. That means you then go into the data in a bit more depth to see what on earth's going on. It will be very rare that actually it'll be as simple as you have a couple of indicators on your dashboard that will tell you exactly what the problem is just by looking at the dashboard. But for the purposes of this video and this overview of the types of indicators that you have, I think it's worth understanding that complementary indicators are important, particularly when you're, as I was saying earlier, curating which indicators you want to have on your dashboard. Okay, so to summarize, I've spoken about 4 indicators in this video. The first indicator was actual levels. Then there are warnings, there's reassurance indicators, and there are complementary indicators. One thing I want to mention before closing is that a car is a complicated system. So a car dashboard has been relatively stable over time because there's just very few variables in which a car is working with that the driver needs to know about. However, your business is a complex system. And what that means is that the indicators you're going to need to use will probably have to change over time. So it's up to you to be continuously looking at your data and seeing whether there are any variables that are influencing the outcomes that you want and whether those variables are changing. Okay, so that is all for today. I hope this video has been interesting to you. I hope it's made you think about what indicators you should be choosing for your dashboards. This is one of the first videos on this channel, so if you could do me a big favor, I'd be really grateful if you could leave me a comment telling me what team productivity content you want to hear more about. What are the issues that you're finding in your team? What are you finding that's causing you to waste a bunch of time? What's making your team uncertain about what's going on in their work? Would love to hear what you're currently struggling with. Put it in the comments and I'll see you in the next video.